So obviously privilege is like a big conversation at the moment, and I've talked a little bit about it recently. I've talked about it like the whole time I've been on TikTok in various forms, but I thought it would be a good time to have more of a little chat about it. And I guess I don't think I've ever sat and done maybe I've done one video on like all the privileges that I feel I have, and my perception of my privileges and how that impacts my ability to home educate. And I feel like this will be a good thing to do for two reasons. Number one, people in here generally think that I deny my privilege, and that is because when people say home education is for the privileged, my response is, hang on, school is also for privileged people, like school is set up for all the privileges, and people think that's me trying to get out of it. It's not. It is because I know many underprivileged people who home educate, and I forget that people are looking at my account and seeing me as like the archetype of home education, which is absolutely not the case. I am I have all the privileges. Like, I'm white, I was born in the UK, I have health privilege. Like, I will say, like, I didn't used to have all these privileges. I was always white and I was always born in the UK, but some privileges like financial privilege and health privilege I haven't always had, but I do now, and obviously these are subjective and relative, but yeah, I have those. And I'm hoping that maybe, like, I do think privilege is an important topic of conversation. I'm hoping that if there are home educators or anyone actually who thinks, oh, I'm not privileged, maybe this might help you to just think about it a bit and like recognise some privileges you do have, because I do think that recognising that helps us be more empathetic with people, helps us be more understanding, and more appreciative of what we have as well. And one thing I did find, like, my little girl had a brain injury. One of my little girls had a brain injury when we were in Bali, and we experienced the healthcare system over there. And then we came back to the UK, and I can tell you now that that experience was like transformative in the way that I viewed healthcare. Like the healthcare privilege, for example, that we have over here, you know, I don't think many people recognise that. And if, for example, like your child gets ill in other countries, even America, like, you know, it's supposed to be a developed country, you know, you can end up being in debt for the rest of your life if your child gets ill, and we don't have that here. So I do think it's important to recognise that stuff. This, by the way, is going to be a bit of a rambly video, but in terms of home education, like, there are certain things that help you. Like, I would say that since I've got more financially privileged, my life has got more convenient, and that has meant that things like, if I had to do what I do now with less money, or in poverty, for example, I would be so stressed all the time, and that would have an impact on my mental health, my children's happiness and mental health. And so it really does have an impact on like a positive impact on our day-to-day. Same with health. Like, I have for many years, like, I was on antidepressants for like 2 decades of my life, and having good mental health and having good physical health is like life-changing, and I'm sure anyone with a disability or illness will know this. I have had some health issues recently, and it reminded me again of, like, it makes such a big difference. And there are people, you know, who are disabled or ill and home educating, and it will definitely affect your day-to-day life and the quality of your experience. The other thing that I think is really important, and like, it's one that so many people miss out, because I think at the moment 100% of the people who have ever commented home education is for the privileged have been white. And I could talk about racism in the education system all day. I won't. I have discussed that in other videos. But if I go to the woods with my children and they are barefoot as a home educator, right, which is something that, you know, is a very home ed thing to do, people look on that in a very specific way, in a kind of cutesy hippie way, because my kids are white. And I can talk with a fairly neutral accent, and if a black family did that, it might be, you know, if my kids have got messy hair, for example, and bare feet and are dirty, that will be viewed very differently by very many people in society if that is a black family. And so that is what privilege is, or like at least a perception of it. And I think I'm like learning more all the time about it. And same goes for things like local authority involvement. If you're white and you're home educating, it's much more likely that you're going to have an easier time dealing with local authorities because of prejudices that local authorities might have against black people. Same with gay families, or maybe families of certain religions. And so, yeah. And by the way, please don't give this person any hate at all. Like, that wasn't the point. I was just using this as a basis for a little chat. So yeah, what I have perceived is that a lot of people think privilege just means money, and it's so much bigger than that. And so yeah, there are many things that help me home educate. I've got pretty much age privilege. Like I'm fairly young, pretty-ish privilege. Like the fact that I'm blonde and white means that I can do things like social media, and it makes it a lot easier for me to grow on social media, for example. You know, just things like that we wouldn't even really know about until we sort of dug into like what privilege is, what it does for us. And so for me, I think there's a lot of virtue signaling actually on apps in particular, because it's very easy to type you're privileged online and to look good. But I think for me, using my privilege means standing up for people and giving people information that will help them access what I have, or getting close to what I have and what they want. So for example, making lots of free content to make sure that families can access home education if they want to, or at least get them a lot further along the way. And giving out information like, you know, you don't have to have meetings with the local authority. You can keep all information in writing, and that information actually helps underprivileged families, because if you are poor or if you are black, then it is more likely that you're going to get perceived in a certain way by a local authority. So yeah, I guess it's definitely been like a massive journey for me. And also what I will say is like things can be a privilege and a sacrifice. So for example, home education, someone commented the other day like, I don't think you take into account how strong you are. And I think that because most people wouldn't want to, or maybe couldn't home educate and run businesses, like be self-employed and do it as a single parent. So yeah, there are obviously sacrifices involved in home education, and particularly if family has to give up an income, or has to like work really, really hard to make it work, or has to move house, or you know, gives up your free time, any chance of that, alone time, for example. So things could be a privilege and a sacrifice. And I think that sometimes when people are told they have privilege, they take that to mean that their hard work doesn't matter and it doesn't count. And I thought there was a bird in my house. A sparrow came in yesterday and I thought it was back, but it's not. If someone tells you you're privileged, it's not an attack on your hard work, and it doesn't mean you haven't really earned in many ways what you've got and that you don't deserve it. That doesn't mean that. It just means that other people could have done the same amount of work as you and put in the same amount of effort, but because of other aspects that they didn't have in their life, like luck, basically different elements of luck, that they wouldn't have the same result as you, because there are things in your favour already. And it also doesn't mean you're a bad person or anything like that. I think that it would be really, really good as a whole if we could all recognise like our privileges and then use them to like level the other people up who don't have them.